My family lives in a small town called Ashland in Oregon. Not too crowded, but not too dull either. Just peaceful enough to make people believe nothing scary could ever happen here. My parents, Robert and Linda Miller, had just left for a 3-day business trip in Seattle. My older sister, Emily, was studying for her master's in San Francisco. That left just me, Ethan, 19 years old, home alone during mid-semester break, enjoying a few quiet days with my PS5 frozen meals and solitude. That night, I had the kitchen lights on, boiling pasta, when I heard the front door open. I peeked my head out from the kitchen. Emily stood at the doorway, a backpack slung over her shoulder and a small rolling suitcase in hand. "Emily?" I blinked, surprised. She smiled. "Surprise. Thought I'd show up unannounced." I looked her up and down. Grey hoodie, hair in a bun, the same sneakers she always wore. "I thought you were in California." "Yeah, but my classes went online. Got bored, so I booked a flight home." She shrugged, heading into the kitchen. "What are you cooking? Smells good." Still a little dazed, I welcomed her with a grin. "Just pasta. Want some?" "Totally. I'm starving. Didn't get a chance to eat on the way." We had dinner together. Emily talked about school, friends, professors. I teased her about whether she had a boyfriend. She tossed a napkin at me, like always. After dinner, she went up to her room. I stayed downstairs, gaming in the living room. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Probably wants me to bring something upstairs, I thought as I glanced at the caller ID. It was Emily. "You need something?" I called out, ignoring the call as it rang beside me. No reply. So I answered. Emily's face appeared on screen. Her hair was down, and behind her was the familiar beige dorm room wall. "Hey kiddo, just checking in to see how you're surviving on your own. You okay?" I froze. "Wait, where are you?" "In my dorm, obviously. I've got a presentation tomorrow. Couldn't come home." I didn't respond. I just slowly looked up toward the second floor, where the light from her room still glowed through the gap under the door. She was up there. And she was also staring at me from my phone screen. I ended the video call with Emily, but my heart was pounding. I tried to convince myself she was pranking me. She loved doing stuff like that. Maybe she was calling from upstairs? Maybe she pre-recorded the video. But logic wouldn't let me hold on to those explanations for long. I crept upstairs, each step echoing inside my skull. Her door was slightly ajar. I knocked. "Emily?" No answer. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. No Emily. No suitcase. No backpack. Nothing. I stood still for a few seconds, then dashed around the entire floor, checking every room, every corner. No one was there. I had just had dinner with my sister, not even an hour ago. I couldn't sleep that night. I left the lights on in my room. Around 3 a.m., curled up in bed, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Dad and I are flying back tomorrow morning. Make sure to lock up." I was about to reply when I noticed the earlier message, sent that evening. "Mom, Dad forgot his passport. I came back to get it. Has Emily come home yet?" I froze. Came back to get it? I ran downstairs. The front door was still locked. I flipped on the porch light. No one there. But just as I turned around, my phone started ringing. Incoming call. Mom. I picked up. I called earlier. Why didn't you answer? I waited outside for almost 10 minutes. Thought I saw someone behind the curtain. Knocked too, but no one came. Figured you were asleep. I could barely breathe. You were really here? Yeah. I thought Emily was home. I turned towards the window curtain. It still hung closed, but behind it, it looked like someone was standing there. The next morning, I'd fallen asleep on the sofa for a few hours. When I opened my eyes, Emily was in the kitchen making pancakes. I froze. Everything was repeating itself. You just got back? I asked. Yeah, early this morning. Mom asked me to stay home with you for a few days. I stared at her. Her clothes, her smile, identical to last night, as if time had stopped or looped. I quietly pulled out my phone, checking my call history and messages with her. They were all still there. The video call too. I secretly recorded her guilt weighing on me. But I needed to be sure. That night, I rewatched the clip I'd filmed earlier. Emily, standing in the kitchen, chatting with me. But in the stainless steel reflection on the microwave behind her, there was no one there. I didn't tell Emily about the video. Honestly, I wasn't even sure I should call that thing Emily anymore. Everything about her, movements, gestures, even the way she furrowed her brow when she couldn't find the honey, was exactly like my sister. But it didn't have a reflection. That night, I locked my bedroom door, barricaded it with a chair, and slipped a fruit knife under my pillow. I wasn't planning to sleep, but exhaustion pulled me under like gravity. Around 2 a.m., I was jolted awake by a knock. Soft, steady. I held my breath, didn't move. Then a voice. Ethan, open up. It's Dad. I shot upright. Dad? Yeah. Mom's busy, so I came home first. I grabbed my phone. No texts, no missed calls. I dialed Dad. The number you are trying to reach is unavailable. Ethan. His voice again, now more urgent. It's cold out here. Open up. I mustered all my courage, cracked the door open just a bit. Dad stood there, wearing his old khaki jacket, hair messy. But something felt off. His eyes were wide, unblinking. As I moved to shut the door, he shoved it open. I stumbled back, panicking. I just want a hug, son. I screamed, grabbed the knife and raised it. He stopped, then smiled. A warped grin, as if pulled tight by wires. Just then, the doorbell rang. I bolted downstairs. On the doorbell camera, I saw Dad standing on the porch, neat hair, suitcase in hand, Mom beside him. I ran back upstairs. The hallway was empty. No one was there. The next morning, Dad and Mom were in the kitchen having breakfast. Emily too. All three of them laughing and chatting like nothing ever happened. I sat down. The air felt heavy. You okay? Emily asked, brow furrowed. You look pale. I forced a smile. Just a bit tired. Dad poured coffee, his hand shaking slightly. Sleep okay? I heard footsteps upstairs last night. Thought it was you walking around. I looked up. I never left my room. All three looked at me silently. Then Mom chuckled. You sleepwalk sometimes, honey. You probably don't remember. I've never sleepwalked. Ever. That night, I reviewed the security cam footage from 2:17 a.m. In it, I saw myself walking in the upstairs hallway, knocking on my own bedroom door from the outside. But I was inside the room at that time. I turned on the audio. My voice, exactly. Ethan, open up. It's Dad. I shivered. No one's copying anyone anymore. There's another me living in this house. I lost all sense of time. Every morning seemed normal. Dad watering plants, Mom cooking soup, Emily slicing fruit. But when I looked closely, things twisted. The clock always read 7:13 a.m., even when sunlight filled the sky. The neighbor's cat, the one I hated, every time I glanced outside, it stood in the exact same spot, same posture, like a sticker on reality. Dreams began bleeding into real life. I'd dream I was sleeping, then dream I woke up, then wake up to realize I was still dreaming. One night I jolted awake, drenched in sweat, to find Mom sitting by my bed, smiling. "What time is it?" I asked. She tilted her head. "There's no time here, Ethan." I turned away, heart pounding. When I looked back, she was gone. The next day, I found my old phone in a drawer, the one I thought I'd lost. When I powered it on, a single unread message popped up, sent by me 4 weeks ago. If you're reading this, you haven't escaped. They're not real. None of them are. You're being kept here by something in the basement. Don't trust anything. I ran to the basement, the one I'd avoided for weeks. But instead of stairs, there was now a cold concrete door. Claw marks scratched into its surface. I knocked. The knock echoed back from inside. My knock being repeated. I dreamed the house was on fire. Everyone, Mom, Dad, Emily, stood inside the flames, untouched, smiling at me. Emily's voice echoed, not from her mouth, but from everywhere. "Why do you keep running? You're loved here." I screamed, "I want to go home. I want real life." The voice grew distorted, harsh, like hundreds of whispers crashing together. "You're home, Ethan. We're keeping you, so you'll never be alone again." I jolted awake. The room was empty. No bed. Nothing. There were only 4 concrete walls and a camera in the corner pointing straight at me. A few weeks later, at a psychiatric hospital on the outskirts of Washington, Dr. Kate Monroe held a thick medical file, staring through the observation glass of room 219. Inside, a skinny young man with messy hair sat curled up in the corner, whispering to himself. Emily's baking cookies, Dad's gardening, Mom's arranging flowers. The doctor sighed and wrote in her notes, "Ethan Cole, 19 years old, severe dissociative disorder caused by trauma. Found unconscious and alone inside a house that had been abandoned for 2 years. The same house where his family died in a fire and explosion. Exhibits prolonged delusional behavior, reconstructing a false reality with fully imagined family members. Condition irreversible. Requires long-term isolation and observation." Around 3 a.m., the door to room 219 opened on its own. Ethan was still sitting there, but the reflection in the mirror was standing up, smiling. The next morning, Monroe entered the surveillance room and played back the footage from the night before. When it reached the part where the camera flickered and cut off, she hit pause, rewound. She stared at the screen. At that moment, a knock on the surveillance room door. She turned. Ethan was standing there, wearing a hospital gown, smiling. "Hello, Dr. Monroe. I think I'm awake now." How did you get out? She gasped, stepping back into the room. She pulled out her phone, dialing quickly. Ethan's awake. The man's voice on the other end was slow, cold. No, he's not. He never woke up. If someone comes to you, don't believe anything they say. She turned back to Ethan, still standing there, smiling gently. No one is real. Not even you can be sure that you are.